But you can imagine the difference of experience. There you were driving your car. At least you thought you were. You weren't actually driving it anyway, but that's another story. And then all of a sudden you learn to navigate through life by not driving. Now to a driver that sounds boring, right? I want this to go where I want it to go. I want to turn left when I want to turn left. Right? Which is precisely why you're totally unenlightened, you would have to say to such a person. As long as you want to go left when you want to go left and accelerate when you want to accelerate and put the brakes on when you want to put the brakes on, well, welcome to unenlightenment. It's funny that a lot of people are trying to get enlightenment by doing just that very thing. But to such a person in such a state of consciousness, to be in the passenger seat doesn't seem interesting at all. You see, because there's no control in the passenger seat. There's no illusion of control. And who wants that? But you only start to even desire it when you've spent enough time at the steering wheel realizing that the cars tend to go in actually pretty predictable patterns. After a while, the scenery isn't particularly interesting anymore. It's not inventive enough. It's not creative enough. And it's based on a fundamental misunderstanding. It's based on an understanding that you are a separate individual person, human being, separate from the whole, separate from others, and separate from life. And you need to make sure your life and your car gets where you want it to get. If there's a prescription for suffering, I'd say that's about as accurate as you can get. Funny thing is the very prescription for suffering is the very thing that we think is a prescription for happiness. Is it not? Do that and you'll be happy. Drive your car, turn left when you want, brake when you want, make your trip exactly what you want it to be, and you'll be free and happy. But the problem is because it's been based on separation, it can't ultimately make one happy. It's not possible, ultimately. Moments, sure. And about the time you realize that, you'll find yourself coming to a place like this. Somewhere. In some realm, at some time, in some way. And that yearning, that call, is a call for a change of relationship with life. To wake up from being the driver. You see, now the thing is, when you explain things like this to people in this way, egos think, well, that would be kind of boring, being in the passenger seat, driven wherever it wants to drive you, and you just sit there and watch the world go by. How interesting is that? But of course, that is the perspective of ego and separation. From the perspective of wholeness, you are in the passenger seat, you are the passenger, you are the seat, you are the car, you are the mysterious non-locatable driver of the car, you are the landscape in which you are driving, you are every experience which you will bump into. Sounds a bit more interesting, doesn't it? But ego just thinks, well, how could that be fun? I, as a separate person, would just be in the driver's seat. But actually, when you get yourself to slip over in the passenger seat, not as an ego, because egos do get bored when they're in the passenger seat too long. Not as an ego. But when you recognize your true nature, which is really the one, or as Meister Eckhart said, the one I, God's I, and your I are one eye, one seeing. And I might add, one driving, one landscape, one being. And all that's required is that we, for just a split second, drop our notion of ourself.